So functions, they make our lives a bit easier because we don't have to do, let's zip back, all of this extraction every single time and copy and paste every single time. All right? This is where the magic is. Yeah. So when should you write a function? All the time is the me answer, but realistically, when you've copied and pasted a block of code more than twice. Why? Oh, let's back up. Sorry. So think about how many times you're going to have to copy and paste that code we developed to scrape data from that art. Hopefully you realize it's a lot. So this is where a function comes in. And frankly, it's still probably too much with all the numbers of art. So just pick some that you like. It'll save you some time. But that's the idea, is so that we can do the same series of steps again with maybe a slight variation. And you know what? Functions let us do that painlessly. Well, relatively painlessly. Because functions are awesome. So awesome. I'm going to move this mic out because I'm leaning on it like it's a little pillow. And that's not great. Okay, so functions allow us to automate common tasks in a more powerful and general way rather than just copying and pasting. So here's some just general pieces of advice here. So give your function name an evocative name so that it's easier for you to understand. Now, as requirements change, like say you have to change them, you only have to update the code once instead of every single copied and pasted time. And it eliminates the chance of making those silly mistakes that I make personally all the time when I don't do functions when you copy and paste, because something will, happen because we're imperfect. And not that R is perfect by any means, but people are definitely imperfect. So for example, say you want to update a variable name in one place, but then you forget to do it in another. It can get rough really fast and tedious. So in the long term, so beyond just making your short-term life easier, they're pretty awesome because they improve your kind of reach and street cred, so to speak, as a scientist by writing functions and packages that others use. They're also useful, like from a more medium-term goal, if you do the same kind of data analysis a lot, say your lab is trying to be well known in doing sibling and cousin comparison designs. Well, if you have a series of functions and an entire library of packages, like I do, it can make lab research easier because you know what function's being applied because you wrote it or someone on your lab wrote it and you checked it. It's helpful, and packages on Crayon do go through a peer review process. It's not an extensive peer review process, but it does require peers to review it and kind of decide that your code is worthy of being in the database. And also, through its process, you will get feedback. So it's almost like perpetual peer review. So it's awesome, it's useful, and those are things you can add on your Vita. Cool. So let's ask ourselves, how many inputs does this following code have? This code should look familiar. It is literally the same as what we did earlier. So pause if you would like to figure out how many inputs this data has. Pausing, pausing, pausing. Cool. So, any guesses? 3. Technically, well, the code's inputted in a couple of places. So what we've done is we've added the first name URL and put it in all these other places. All right, so technically it's one input and we use it a lot. And it's just used again and again. Everything else in that chunk stays the same. So how do we turn our code into a function? Well, you pick a short but informative name, preferably a verb. Then you list the inputs for your argument. So your inputs, your arguments. So this is the stuff that goes into your function that are then manipulated through the series of steps. So if we have more arguments than are just one, we can kind of input them with commas. So in the first position, we got X, then Y, then Z. But for our case, we only need one. Okay, so then we place the code that you've developed in the body of the function with braces around it, curly braces. In this block, that curly brace, blah, 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 blah. So you place the code that you've developed in the body of the function. This is the braces, curly braces block. It's immediately following the function. So in here, I've got it in green. I am not optimistic that my mouse screen capture is going to work, but here's the function. And here are the inputs. You literally write the word function here. And then all the code to get manipulated goes inside the body here. And we assign that to an object. It becomes a function, and eventually it'll have parentheses here so you can take inputs. So your turn. I want you to open up the second chunk in that get activity functionalize. So, and then follow along and fill in the blanks as you go. So here we've got our function, scrape art, and here's what it does. So let's kind of walk through it. I've commented it in here. So we read in the page for input X. So what's happening is that everything that's we set to be X gets put in here. And then X is read, it's assigned a page, then we scrape the headers here, assign those to headers, we scrape the values from pages, and then we put it all together as a tibble. And that tibble, we combine the headers and values, we pivot it, and then we add in a column called link, which also takes that same input at the beginning. Yes? Cool. Welcome to the world of functions. So let me show you this function in action. So I've scraped a big list of links, and I'm just going to grab them from here just for my own sanity, but you can swap out this first position for the raw string if you would like. So here we've put in the first link, the first element of our art link, and let's take a peek. So here it has extracted artist, title, date, period, description. It's all here. Pretty neat. Let's do it again. How about with the second one? We've got this. So we got A. McIntosh, who's created this piece called Rooftops with Paint. Here's the URL. Cool, cool, cool. Here we've got seated male nude. Ta-da! Same deal. We've just taken a little bit of a peek here. So yeah, welcome to the world of functions. Now, let's talk a little about writing them. So, mm, nah, put this here and figure out what the hell is wrong with these slides. Bye.